You are about to embark upon a journey into the all. As you escape this world, visualize the relaxing scene of nature as it takes you away. Also experience and visualize and relax in the sound of my voice. I, the Supreme Grandmaster, Lyle Malachi, so Dr. York L. and Liz, Athea York L.
Under Wu-Sabat divine Eric
We give all prayers and say, I just all.
and here, la scripture Eric
I am in the love of the all. Wakun,
I showcase you before
and all love is in me.
and here for the virtue Eric
I am part of the all.
Why come is the Father virtue name
And the all is around me.
and your right mind Eric
I am one with the all.
Why come into right mind me
And the all is one with me.
Anipelekelo emitindo kama para onjikila kolo
I can succeed as a part of
wakolo kama para anipelekelo akuwilo kuti aniyafido ile kolo
I can do all I wish.
kama kaskazini ezulia ahini fia kolo
As long as my wish is to stay there.
aniya kabaka wako
I'm never alone.
el kolo ezu aniya
All is I am.
el
I
kolo
can
yakelo ayi akelo
all can. I can.
el kolo yakelo ayi avelo
All does. I do.
Wu-Sabat, Moisar, Wu-Sabat. Okay. Wu-Sabat, Moisar. All right. We are here today, another day of Wu-Sabat. Another day for us to do what we do. Another day for us to do what we do. Kabul Moisar. That means welcome, family. Kabul Moisar. Welcome, family. Welcome to our Sabian family. Welcome to our YouTube family. We welcome all. And just another day for us to do what we do, right? Which is spread Wu-Sabat to the whole globe. So for those who do not know me, my name is Peti Sina Teptu Re'e, and I've been over a 30-year student teacher of the profound doctrine of the master teacher, known to us as Panabab Yananan, also known as Dr. Melakazi K. York, who has been teaching us our ancient culture. We identify as Wu-Sabat, also known as Wu-Nawap, which stands for those who make decisions based on sound right reasonability, based on the principles of Ma'at, based on the wisdom of the Hutri. In essence, our culture was about being in harmony with natural nature. Our culture was always about being in harmony with natural nature. And we argue that the challenges that people are dealing with, our people, Black people, woolly haired people all over the globe, the challenges are due to the fact that we gotten away from our original culture. Our original culture, Wu-Sabat, that was what we lived prior to 6,000 years ago. Now, I know that's a long time ago, but once you understand how long we existed, then 6,000 years is not even a thought in the span of our timeline. But sadly, for the last 6,000 years, we have gradually gotten away from our way of doing things up until 500 years ago, when we've been under the control of racism, white supremacy that has dominated the globe. And now our culture, now our people live a culture that's adverse to their nature, is adverse to their natural being, because the culture, Western world culture, is about being materialist. It's about not being in harmony with nature itself. And that's why the globe is suffering. The world is suffering because the world is not living in harmony with nature. And the culture of Wu-Sabat was totally based on that. It was based on being in harmony with nature. And so we argued that in order for our people's bad conditions to change, that means they have to change their culture. They have to change their decisions. They have to change the way they do things. And that's what we, as students of Wu-Sabat, are dedicated to helping our people around the globe do just that. The master teacher, as you can see his image right here, he's been trying to educate us for the past 60 years. And I'm just one of many students who have dedicated themselves to his assistance, to assist in this education to assist in helping out people in this culture. I always like to have a disclaimer. I'm not above making mistakes. So if I make any mistakes, do not hesitate to correct me. I try to correct myself, but I think that's important. Now, with all that being said, before we get started with our discussions for today, we always do our prayer system. Our culture is about spiritual development. The culture of Wu-Sabat is about spiritual development. So we always go through a prayer system for your own spiritual edification. Okay? So let's get started. Just so you know, also, it's our when we do the prayer, it's in our language, which means Lahaj, our Lahaj, Sabaic, and I do the English translation after I do it in Sabaic for those who do not know. Badoa Kalam Namasat Wufa Ko America Samun Shalal Put Pa Sawa Wupa Tarak Panen Safa Kawun Pa Sawa Wupa Tarak Z Kawuna Nazula Laha and Kum Mane Sabat Wu-Sabat Ama Hadayan Shafe'un Mane Salafu Wunataru Ajula Yena Fasu Kum Afuk Shane Kawun Kuma Pa Sawa Wupa Tarak. This book is the truth and the way. It was sent down for you all from Sabat Wu-Sabat star constellation as a guidance and a healing from your ancestors and overseers. Return to your own. Accept what is yours, the truth and the way. Anun tawa ankum laha panan shafe un wu alaj. Anun tawa ankum laha nasuinun. Anun tawa ankum laha ashuk. Ankum ata salafunun. Anun ata kharar ukum. Anun talub nasar kuma. Anun talub nasar kuma. And so num sayam nataru, and so num salafunun, and unata munwapu. We thank you all for this healing and cure. We thank you all for not forgetting us. We thank you all for Ashuk. You are our ancestors. We are your children. We seek your help. We seek your help. Help us, divine overseers. Help us, our ancestors. We are Muspa'u. Anun, Atun, Atun, Amun. Agenda 4. Okay. Alrighty. So, with that being said, we always get started with our discussions and going into the principles of Wu-Sabat. Now, for those who are new, who are either watching this live or watching the recording of this, we always make it our point to go over the principles, the core principles of Wu-Sabat, because this is how we live. This is the basis of our culture, are these principles. And all of our discussions that we do on this channel is based around these core principles to give people an in-depth explanation of what these principles represent and why we live them and why it's so impertinent. So this is why we go through it, so that you can begin to implement these core principles into your lives. And for all of you guys who are familiar with these things, as a reminder, that's why we do it. So you would know it inside and out, and you can teach it as well, because the goal of our culture is each one teach one. You guys know that because we're going to say it, and we always say it. So with that being said, our first principle is Ashak, and that stands for divine love, or what we say, the power of love, right? And we did a discussion on that, so definitely check that out. Principle number 2 is resurrection. As being students of Wu-Sabat, the goal is to become goddesses and gods once again by learning to open up our third eye, as our ancestors once did. We've done several discussions on that, so definitely check those out. Principle number 3 is the wisdom of the Hutri and Ma'at. The Hutri stands for our divine mind, and Ma'at stands for order. We did discussions on that, so definitely check that out. Principle number 4 is relationships. As an African people, we live of, for, and by each other. Okay? We did a lecture on that, so check that out. Principle number 5 is morphic resonance / matrix. Morphic resonance deal with sound, tone, colors, frequencies, vibrations, and it is what produces the matrices, the manifestations of those things. Principle number 6 is Leviathan. Leviathan stands for moon culture, aka religion, aka Western culture. Leviathan is what we've been at war with for the last 6,000 years. We did discussions on that, so definitely check that out. Principle number 7 is soul and spirit. Your soul is your emotional force, and your spirit is your life force. We did discussions on that, so check those discussions, lectures out. Excuse me. And principle number 8 is health. The first key to health is a positive mind. And as melanated children of melanin, we need a lot of sunlight. I can't stress that enough, why that's important for our health. Water, our body is 70% water. Fasting, we recommend fasting at least once or twice a week. Herbal diet that Dr. Sebi taught us. Exercising, rhythmic breathing, meditation, concentration, prayer, and chanting. Health is not just physical as we teach, but it's also spiritual. You can't have one without the other. And this is one of the reasons we argue our people are suffering health-wise, because they're imbalanced. They're imbalanced. And last principle we focus on is Pa'ut. Pa'ut is just the creative force, existence itself, the creative force. And it's based on what we call the SMAT, cycles, perpetual ever-changing cycles of existence. And the creation energy is called Achach. Achach is the creation energy. We identify as ether energy. Okay. Now, with all that being said, as a student of Wu-Sabat, we have 3 primary goals. 3 goals. Goal number 1 is to raise the self. Goal number 2 is to fight Leviathan. And goal number 3 is to work to build Sabbatia. And goal number 1 in raising the self, we teach you must be born again, as Christians teach, by learning the culture of Wu-Sabat and live it, giving up the old ways of Western culture and gradually implement the principles of Wu-Sabat into your day-to-day life. That's the goal. And in that process, one of the first objectives is to correct your name, right? Take on a Sabian name. It's extremely important, and make it known to all. Let people know who you are. And doing that, correct how you look and you dress. Begin to identify with cultural African clothing. That's important. You must learn our language, Sabaic. Speak the language. Language is key, guys. You must study our doctrine every day, which builds your sound right reasoning skills. This is how by studying the doctrine, it's going to assist you in making those day-to-day decisions that will help benefit your life for the better. So you have to study, guys. I can't stress that enough. You have to study each and every day. And you must practice and master our daily rituals to turn yourself inside out. This is how you open your third eye, by doing the spiritual rituals, the prayers, the meditations, the chants, the concentration exercises. All of these things are key towards opening your third eye. And you're not going to get anything done worthwhile provided you be positive. Always be positive, guys. Now, in principle, in goal number 2 in fighting Leviathan, this includes working to free Panabab Yananin, promoting Wu-Sabat, become a student teacher, and fight the 6 strongest weapons of Leviathan, which are our ignorance, our fears, our ego, our anger, our lust / our desires, and lies / deceptions. Those are the attributes that Leviathan feeds off of. And as you guys know, the whole planet behaves like these attributes. And that lets you know that the spirit forces of Leviathan is what's ruling the planet, guys. And this is why we're fighting it. And your third goal is to work to build Sabbatia. We need our own land so we can set up our own community, guys. We work to support each other in business. We help each other reach positive goals. We help to build our culture. We must set up a landing zone for Panatharu in Africa, which means we need land in Africa that would be supported by an African government. And Ashuk is the key to accomplish all our goals. Ashuk is the key to accomplish all our goals. Now, what does it mean to be a Sabian? A Sabian is someone who is thoughtful and cares. someone who is helpful and honest, someone who is responsible and hardworking, someone who demands justice and honorable, someone who is righteous and humble, someone who is positive and cheerful, someone who is loving and peaceful, someone who is kind and considerate, and someone who is neat, clean, and orderly. So just by implementing all of those principles into your character, you will see that you will be a transformed individual. Because obviously they don't teach us these things in the Western world. But let's keep going. Our purpose as Sabian is liberation from adverse forces. This is what we're dedicated to each and every day, to liberate ourselves and our people from adverse forces. 1, you must take action each and every day to free yourself of 60 spirits inside and out, which includes Black people who are possessed by these spirit forces. 2, acknowledge and fight 6 ether from promoting capitalism, the gay agenda, miscegenation, the so-called equality of the races, and racism, white supremacy. And number 3, learn, live by, and promote the laws/rules of natural nature, and each one teach one. Word of advice. Do not judge this doctrine by watching the behavior of Panabab Yanana nor his students. Judge this doctrine by the effectiveness of the information, aka affirmation, that you personally put to practical use. This doctrine is based on self-authentication, guys. You got to put the work into it to make it work for you. Know that we are not preachers, but teachers who are dedicated to answering questions until there is a meeting of the minds between teacher and student, who then can work in unity, which is the only solution to our problems. Quote, what you do for yourself in kind depends on what you think of yourself in kind. What you think of yourself in kind depends on what you know of yourself in kind. And what you know of yourself in kind depends on what you was taught and by whom of yourself in kind. Another quote, until a lion have their historians, the hunter will always be the hero. Last, the negative mind talks of what it can't and will not do for self and kind, always complaining about who they don't like or trust, whereas the positive mind always maintains the peace by not complaining about that in which they do not like, but focus on finding solutions to their problems, never allowing obstacles to get in their way of growth. Okay, with all that being said, today's discussion is titled The Journey Within. The Journey Within. Now, this in actuality, this is a continuation of last week's discussion. We talked about spirituality, ETs, and life on Earth. So we're just gonna dive in a little bit more about spirituality, because guys, we can't talk about this enough. Unfortunately, we've grown up in a world and the culture, Western culture of materialism, and they don't teach you anything about spiritual development. And so many of us have been a part of these religious doctrines of Christianity, Judaism, or Islam, and they don't teach about spiritual development because they lack the sound right reason, and they really don't know much about spiritual development. Now, I have been noticing people have been talking in the conscious community, as they call it, more about spirituality, but there's a big but. A lot of the knowledge that they speak about when it comes to spirituality is things that they have researched and knowledge that they have been studying, and some of them have experience when it comes to spirituality. But what is the but? We teach spirituality by way of the master teacher, someone who is actually a spiritual master, someone who has access to other spiritual realms, who have come from those realms and come to this realm that we're on to educate us about these other spiritual principles and levels of existence that we used to know. That's why people can research spirituality, because a lot of our ancestors and a lot of people written about it. But the people today don't have the practical experience of what spiritual development really is, because they're not being taught by a master, a spiritual master, which is what Dr. Malachi Z.K. York is. Panabab Yananan, which is his spiritual name. He is a spiritual master. So I put a call out there to everyone who is interested in spirituality. Be mindful. Be mindful, because when you're dealing with spiritual development and you're trying to tap in to other levels of reality and other dimensions, that is an education all to itself. That is so vast and extremely complex. If you don't have a guide, someone who is there to guide you through this process, which is what our whole doctrine is all about. The master teacher has dedicated himself to writing hundreds of books, guiding us, explaining to us what we need to do versus the things we do not do, how to really develop yourself spiritually from an African-minded perspective. That's the key. The African mind, not the Chinese mind, not the Hindu mind, not the Caucasian mind. We do not get our spiritual education from no other race of people, because spirituality is racial centered. I can't say that enough. Spirituality is racial centered, and we will touch on that to give some more context to what we mean by that. But spirituality is racially centered, guys. That's why we talk about morphic resonance frequencies, morphic resonance. Now, I know I have not yet have done a detailed discussion on that subject matter, but we will, because that's a very in-depth discussion, a very important discussion. You guys really need to be aware of exactly what morphic resonant frequencies are really all about. But once you comprehend morphic resonances, then you will have a greater comprehension of all things in existence, how things come into existence, and the differences that manifest with all of these different things. And so what creates a race is its different morphic resonant signature. But because our people don't know anything about that, they think, people have been talking to me. I've talked about this before. Current scientists are saying there's no such thing as race. Everyone has the same DNA. Yes, everyone has the same DNA, because the DNA signature that humans have is the DNA signature of the planet Earth. But not everyone has the same spirit forces. And your spirit force is what designs how your body materialized on the material realm. It is the spirit force that dictates that, guys. And when you become spiritually ignorant, you would not know this. And we live in a culture that does not teach us these things. So I hope we can get this message across more, effectively. So with all that being said, our discussion is a journey within. Now, the master teacher did he put out a video actually called The Journey Within. And I played it in the beginning of our session here, and I'm going to play it at the end as well. And he did it with his one of his daughters. Excuse me. And it was about introducing our people to the journey within, the spiritual journey within, on developing oneself spiritually. And so the video was a spiritual message for our people on what the journey within is all about. Okay. So, all right. So question, what do we mean by the journey within? Answer: you are someone who commits your time and efforts to your spiritual growth and knowledge. So that's what the journey within really is that you are someone who commits your time and effort to your spiritual growth and knowledge. That's someone who is on a journey within, someone who is doing that. You make time to pray, to chant, to meditate, to practice your rhythmic breathing, to master concentration so that you are not so easily distracted and be able to see with your eyes open the plane of force. This is one of the keys towards concentration exercises, guys. And I'm talking from experience. Once you develop that, you actually can begin to peer into the next plane. We're on a material plane. The next plane that's interwoven with this plane is called the plane of force. And you actually can begin to peer into as you begin to become more spiritually sensitive as you doing your spiritual practices. You become more sensitive to these things, these energies that's all around us. You have an oversoul inside of yourself that you must learn to make contact with. You must learn to open your third eye, giving you awareness of spiritual realms. And this is why we do these things, so that we can become more cognate and more knowledgeable about these things. What else is more important than that? Think about it. Think about us being, as humans, we're on the what we call the material plane, but we are existing in many different vibrational planes of existence, but we're not cognizant of it. We're totally unaware of it, which means that we're really not experiencing full life. We're really not experiencing full life. And what I'm here to say is for the last 6,000 years, there's been a concentrated effort on this planet to keep humanity ignorant of their spiritual reality. I repeat, there's been a concentrated effort to keep humanity ignorant of their spirituality and spiritual existence. And that is why last week's discussion, we got into the UFO subject matter, because if people really took the time to comprehend the UFO subject matter, then they will see the connection to people's spiritual ignorance, because you would realize that it is so-called ETs, higher spiritual beings, which is what they are the reason why you have all of these religious dogmas on the planet and people are massively ignorant about spiritual development. They talk about spiritual concepts, right? But they don't have no real practical knowledge when it comes to spirituality. They talk about heaven that they never been to. They talk about a God they never saw. They talk about prophets doing miracles that they never experienced. All of the people in the Bible is not even alive. That's why we call it the book of the dead. We're studying about people who are dead. Where's the spiritual masters of the Bible who is alive today? None of them. There are no spiritual masters of the Bible, of religions, to guide people towards righteousness. They don't exist. Outside of the people who claim that they are. Now you got a ton of people who claim themselves to be Jesus, claiming themselves to be the Bhaktis, or claiming themselves to be the guides of our people with no real right knowledge. They aren't solving the problems on the planet. The planet is still suffering. These religions had 2,000 years to get things straight. 2,000 years. That's why we say, how about give Wu-Sabat a chance? Wu-Sabat has only been on the planet for the last 60 years. We're just getting started. These religions been here for over 2,000 years. They had plenty of opportunity to bring justice to the planet. Instead of bringing justice, they bring mayhem and chaos. Is what the world has to look forward to through these religious dogmas. So, the journey within is about becoming consciously aware of your spiritual nature. Question: are you a celestial being or a terrestrial being? This is something you have to ask yourself. Each one of you have to ask yourself, are you a celestial being or a terrestrial being? Are you someone who thinks about life outside of Earth and how to make contact with other levels of reality? Or are you someone who is too preoccupied with life on earth that you don't make time to focus on things outside of earth or space? You don't take the time out to focus on your spiritual development. Or you do take the time out and you're consumed with focusing on your spiritual development. This you have to become become aware of what are you? What motivates you? What's your motivating factor? Are you a celestial being or a terrestrial being? Now, for those who know, I talk about this quite often. The master teacher put out a scroll on that particular subject matter. And let's see if I can find it, because I think I know I have it right here. So this particular scroll right here, celestial being or terrestrial being, which one are you? I've talked about this before for those who followed, our discussions. Which one are you? It says, have you ever felt as if there was more to your life than you are aware? Have you found yourself reminiscing about things you presently have no knowledge of? Or are you totally content with your existence here on the planet Tiamat, or M2, or Tiwawat, or Ki, now called Earth, and never contemplate on that which is beyond this physical plane? Seriously, think about the answers you give these questions, for they may very well determine if you are a celestial being or a terrestrial being. What does this mean? First of all, the word celestia comes from the old Latin word calum, if I'm pronouncing that right, guys, meaning heaven, or that which relates to the heavens. And heaven is an Anglo-Saxon word meaning the region or expanse which surrounds the planet Earth, and is ethereal or immortal, angelic, divine, or divination. Now, terrestrial is that which is within your planet Terra, or Earth's atmosphere, that which is earthly or worldly. These are those beings who are spiritually born and have incarnated here on earth. Their incarnation into this plane has brought about psychic powers which makes them feel different from others. Now, we're talking about someone who's celestial in nature. We're talking about. I'll read it again. There are those beings who are spiritually born and have incarnated here on earth. Their incarnation into this plane has brought about psychic powers which makes them feel different from others. They suffer a great deal of humiliation, sadness, and depression. Their lives are often burdened with emotions they cannot explain, which may result in an undefined nervous breakdown. Have you ever known someone who you automatically labeled as crazy because their ways and actions were so unlike your own? Well, it is very possible that this unusual person you have encountered is not crazy, but a celestial being. On the other hand, there are those beings who are born and conceived here on this planet. Most of their lives are much easier lived than celestial beings. They rarely feel out of place or out of touch with their surroundings. This person you may have encountered is a terrestrial being. I ask you now, are you body, soul, and spirit of this realm? Or are you body, soul, and spirit of another realm? You must broaden your thinking to the realization that there are other realms and other beings that exist within this realm. You see, your planet Earth has shifted. It was originally on a 90-degree axis. However, with the destruction of the city of Mu, Earth's axis was shifted to a 23 and one half degree. You are also embarking upon a new era or age. Thus, the time is coming when spiritual events are taking place. The climate is changing. The temperature in the western part of the Grand Canyon is shifting. The ice caps are melting, etc. All of this is happening because in the center of your planet, there is an opening. And through this opening, you will find that inside the core of your planet, there is a tropical land where beings from other galaxies come. This place is called Shambhala or Agata, where different extraterrestrial beings exist. There are also 6 cabins beneath us where beings live. On April the 23rd, 1994, the 2 beams of Sirius crossed. These are the great suns. Now on May 5th, 2000, which this already happened, guys, what will happen is the heavenly bodies, which you refer to as the major planets, will realign themselves. And the mothership, Nibiru, or we call it the Banjet for us, is nearing your solar system, waiting for the time, which will be August the 12th, 2003, all the way up to August 2030, guys, when the vortex will reopen. Once again, extraterrestrials or anything which is outside of this planet can come through the vortex. And so being celestial is someone who becomes aware of the other levels of existence, the higher levels of existence on higher dimensional realities, higher planes of existence. That's what being celestial is all about, guys. Unfortunately, we live in a culture that conditioned us to be terrestrial in nature, unfortunately. But keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Ask yourself, what are you? Right? Question. How do you develop yourself spiritually and why? Question. How do you develop yourself spiritually and why? Answer. First key to spiritual development, guys, is a positive mind. I can't stress that enough. The first key to spiritual development is a positive mind. I cannot stress that enough. The first key to spiritual development is a positive mind. I cannot stress that enough. Why do we say this? Well, because as you're moving into the other realms, your mentality, the way you think, right? How you perceive things, that's a certain vibratory frequency. Okay. And so when we talk about a positive mind, that puts you at a certain type of vibration and frequency, as opposed to someone who's always frustrated, someone who complains a lot, someone who has strong addictions. That individual is stuck at a certain frequency and they would be cut off from the higher spiritual realms. And so in order to be able to tap into the higher realms, you have to be at a certain level of consciousness, a positive state of consciousness, in order to pierce into the upper realms that we are talking about. You have an ability to get to, not the lower realms, because there's many people who experience the lower dimensional realms. People do that every time they go out of body. People, you have people who naturally go out of body when they go to sleep, but they're on the lower spiritual realms. We're trying to get past the lower realms into the higher realms, which starts at the 4th realm, what we call the mental plane. And you have to have a certain state of consciousness, a certain type of mentality to get to that realm. Negative, disagreeable people, those who are full of self-doubt, those who are full of fear and anxieties, sickly, you won't be able to make it to those higher realms. You have to have a pure heart, and which is why we talk about how one develops their heart center We did a discussion on that, if you guys remember. How does one develop their heart center? So first key to spiritual development is a positive mind. That's step one, guys, right? Positive mind. Okay? That goes back to the when we talk about the what does it mean to be a Sabian? Right? What does it mean to be a Sabian? Right here. Someone who is thoughtful and cares. Someone who is helpful and honest. Someone who is responsible and hardworking. Someone who demands justice and honorable. We don't have no honorable people anymore. Right? Someone who's righteous and humble. Okay? Someone who's positive and cheerful. Someone who's loving and peaceful. Kind and considerate. Neat, clean, and orderly. So now you know what it means to be positive. All of these attributes is what makes a positive character. Someone who fights ignorance. Someone who fights fear. Someone who fights ego. Someone who fights anger. Someone who fights their lusts and desires. Someone who fights lies and deception. You don't have any of these attributes that you're striving to overcome all of those things that may be in our personality, because it's been embedded in all of our personalities. But the goal of Wu-Sabat is to conquer those things in us, all of these negative attributes. So again, question, how do you develop yourself spiritually and why? Rituals, guys. You have to do the rituals each and every day. You know, I keep talking about that. If you can't discipline yourself to do the rituals each and every day, how could you ever possibly develop spiritually? It's impossible. If you're not going to do the prayers, the chanting, the concentration exercises, the meditation, the rhythmic breathing. The rhythmic breathing, guys, we wrote a whole book. The master teacher put a whole book just on breathing. The breath book, dedicated to learning how to rhythmically breathe. Why is that important? That is important because when you learn how to rhythmically breathe, you're able to harness what we call sachem. Sachem, which is an energy. It's the life force energy that feeds your cells. In fact, you harness sachem every day of your life. Every time you're breathing, you're taking in sachem, especially when you go to sleep. This is why your body feels rejuvenated after a good sleep. Your body's renewed. That's why the human being can't stay up forever. You have to go to sleep. Why? Because the sachem is depleted from your cells. And so we go to sleep so that the sachem can be recharged. Your cells can be recharged. But notice how it works. Sleep works, meaning your conscious mind shuts down. And at that point, your body can then harness sachem into the body, which is what meditation is, by the way. Meditation is concentrated sleep. It is the ability to shut down your conscious awareness, right? So that your body can start harnessing sachem into it. That's what meditation is. Sleep is unconscious awareness where you're not aware anymore. And so your consciousness shuts down and you lose awareness. And then the body harnesses sachem and it charges your cells. The problem is with sleep, imagine yourself as like a battery. And when you go to sleep, you get a 25% charge. But in order to really be efficient, you need 100% charge. That is what spirituality is all about. Getting the 100% charge by doing the rituals, doing the meditation, doing the concentration, doing the rhythmic breathing. That's how you get a full charge, through these spiritual practices. And what happens is it begins to activate you. We have dormant senses, what we call the occult nerves. We have higher levels of senses because you have your normal senses, right? You have your see, hear, taste, touch, smell, but you also have dormant senses. The master has been teaching us this for years. The ability of telepathy, right? Communicating mind to mind. We don't need cell phones. We develop our telepathy skill sets. The ability of psychometry. Psychometry is the ability to touch an object, right? And you can tap into the morphic resonant frequency of the object and know who the object belonged to, know where the object's origin, so on and so forth. That's psychometry. That's a dormant sense we have. But those senses aren't developed because we don't harness enough sachem into our bodies. Intuition is another dormant sense. Intuition is the ability to perceive the truth about something, to perceive something that is about to happen, to know about something, to go into a place and have an awareness of what this place is all about. These are dormant senses. Why we don't experience these senses? Because we're not harnessing the necessary energy. We actually, the culture that we live, a Western culture, counteracts all of those things. It numbs you. Actually, guys, all you gotta do is notice. I've talked about this before. As a person gets older, their senses get numb, more numb. Why? Because of the bad habits we had, the bad diet, the bad mentality and thinking. We numb ourselves. So just look at, our elderly class of people. Their eyesight begins to go. Their hearing begins to go. Their sense of taste even goes. Their sense of smell begins to go. Your senses begin to get weaker. Why is that? Because they've lived 50, 60 years never doing anything spiritually to develop themselves. And they actually do things that harms their spiritual development through their mentality and their diet and their lack of exercise. Much sunshine, guys, for spiritual development. As melanated people, children of where our bodies are dedicated to harnessing, our bodies are dedicated to the development of melanin, right? So as Africans, we are melanated children of melanin. What is the beauty of that? The beauty of melanin is that it's an attraction energy. It pulls energy to you. It pulls sun energy. That's why we say you need to be in the sun, because of the melanin. It pulls energy, and that's another way we recharge ourselves. But guys, again, what do most black men wear as footwear? Most black men wear, and now a lot of our women, we all wear sneakers. What is sneakers? What is sneakers? Sneakers are nothing but rubber. What is rubber? Rubber is an insulator. It insulates yourself against what? Electrical flow. Why is that important to know? Because our feet are not on the earth. Our feet is not in the grass. You understand? In order for the earth to grow grass and vegetation, that means there's life there. There's energy there. That's why vegetation grows out of the earth, because there's an energy. That's ether energy there, guys. And because our feet is not in the grass any longer, you walk in the grass and your body gets recharged literally by walking in the grass. And so the disagreeable ones, they put tennis shoes on everyone's feet, these sneakers on everyone's feet with rubber soles that blocks the connection. That's right, Allison. That's absolutely right what you're saying. The key to spiritual development, guys, is to conquer your desires. There's no real spiritual growth if you can't begin to conquer and work on your desires. All of us, because we all been raised in this Western culture, all of us have been addicted to these bad habits, whether it's bad eating habits, bad thinking habits, bad vices. Some of us smoke, some of us drink, some of us like to go to places we shouldn't go to, whether it be a strip club or whatever. We have some bad vices, and these are habits, and how can you really develop yourself spiritually if you're doing things that actually deplete your energy? I'm talking about. So how do you develop yourself spiritually, and why? Why did you want to develop yourself spiritually? Well, because if you choose not to do it, the chances is a reincarnation. So you can either go up to the higher realms or come back to this realm and start again. And each incarnation, you get a memory wipe. Each incarnation, you get a memory wipe. The master teacher, listen, he wrote a book. He put out a book on this subject matter, right? He put a book out on this subject matter. Let's see where is that book at? He put a book out on this subject matter. Let's see. Okay, this is a Master Secrets, which is page 6. This is the Master Secrets, the cycles of life and death. The Master Secrets, the cycles of life and death. I'll do it in the Al-Hajj language. Pa dawa at shalil tahye wu tamwat. I'll do that again. Pa dawa at shalil tahye wu tamwat. And that translates the cycles of life and death. And right here, pa nabab u, right? Pa nabab u. Let's see. Kadush at, or kadash at, pa nabab u, kadash at. That's in there. And guys, we got to become familiar in reading and speaking the language, the Lahaj. Okay, so this was the actual facts. This is series number 10, Master Secrets, series number 10 that the master teacher Panabat Minanan, that he put out explaining this process. The information that no one's ever taught us before. No one's ever taught us this. But I'm going to read from paragraph 81, guys. Very important. It says, just as in life and death, each of you have a purpose, right? Just as in life and death, each of you have a purpose. If you have not accomplished your purpose, once you die, you will be drawn toward a bright white light to return back to life and live again. This is repeated 24 times to 24,000 times, depending on how many lives it takes for your perfection as a divine being to turn inside out and outside in. Paragraph 84. From beast to man to human to Hu, a deity, you, who personifies the authority of being. Pa Pa'ut, Joef Pa'ut, translate as the all in all. So each person lives many lives until perfection is obtained. This may be your first, or this may be your last time, from 24 lives to 24,000 genomes. Or lives you've lived. Pa Wakut, the time is not linear. It is circular, in fact, spiral. Time as life moves in circles or cycles. Often you will repeat and feel like, I have done this before. I have been here before. I know that person that I never met in this Hayah Dawar life cycle. This is why you made a clock, a circle, a way of keeping time, and it repeats every 24 hours. Those of your lineage who have died and crossed over watch over you in this life and will come to meet and greet you at Tamwat, death. They try to help you in each life to guide you in the best direction. For most of you, because of your religions, you accepted after birth, you Jahul ignore their signs who speak inside of you that say, don't do this or that, don't try that, slow down, or danger ahead. See, they're speaking inside. This is why the journey is within, guys. This is why the journey is within, to develop yourself spiritually, where you can make contact with your muslafu or salafu, your ancestors. Peace, Tarbuna. Peace, beloved. Paragraph 92. Yet, because of religions, Tajhal ignorance, a blind faith in fictional stories made up by Adamites for Adamites, many of our race are disconnected from their own lineage to the Samem divine in us, which is that nine ether by way of mother or Vanas Tasu. We call the feminine. So, guys, we there's cycles of existence. There's cycles, there's life cycles, death cycles, right? And each individual gets up to 24,000 life cycles. Even the Mukasu gets that before you time out, before your spirit energy times out, unless you're able to resurrect into the higher realms. I hope we take heed to that. Question: what does it take to be spiritual? Question: what does it take to be spiritual? Every day you must focus on the goal of spiritual development. You must practice rituals every day, at least twice to 3 times a day for at least 30 to 90 days before you see real results. This is my recommendation, guys, from my own personal, practices. I highly recommend anywhere between 30 to 90 days, provided if you have bad habits, you can begin to curb those habits, right? Bad eating habits, the bad thinking, right? The negative mind thing I keep talking about, the lust, meaning you have to, we go back to the core principles, right? You have to deal with these principles of Leviathan, your ignorance. What is the ignorance thing? Our people don't like researching nothing. This is why the master teacher wrote all these books, so that you will know things. You can't wallow in ignorance. Question, I came ask a question. Can you get the energy through socks? That's an interesting question. I guess if it's cotton, if it's a natural element or object, possibly, but it's still I'm not saying to walk around barefoot every day, but what I am saying is living, guys, I was born and raised in New York City. There is no grass in New York City. It's nothing but concrete. The whole freaking city is concrete. And most cities that are being developed around the world are all concrete. So it's disconnecting people from nature. You have children being born that have no concept of nature. Guys, my wife is a teacher. And I would tell her all the time, these children don't realize that apples come from nature. They grow on trees and not Walmart. They don't come from Walmart. And she experienced that. Children in the school system are really, they don't know. They don't realize that certain things grow naturally in nature, because they're so used to going to the store and buying it, and their parents are not teaching them these things. They're not, guys. It's so bad that these children are not even taught our history here in America. They don't even know about slavery. They don't know about basic ancestors, whether it be Harriet Tubman or Frederick Douglass or Booker T. Washington. They don't know. They're not teaching them. Mukasu is making sure they're dumbing our people down for the next generation. Okay. So doing the rituals, this is the only way. That's why we teach our culture. Let me go back to our core principles. We teach in the core principles that this doctrine is based on self-authentication, right? This doctrine is based on self-authentication, meaning it is up to you to do the rituals. If you don't do the necessary things spiritually, then you can never authenticate what we teach. It would always be in a realm of belief, and you have to trust. And the goal is to get away from the realm of belief and to get into the realm of sound right reasonability. But if you're not going to do the necessary things for your own spiritual edification and development, then how can you ever get into the realm of knowing the truth as opposed to believing things? You have to know what the master teacher has been teaching you are facts, not believe what he's saying is factual. And the way you get into that level of knowledge is by doing the necessary things to expand your consciousness. Again, guys, as you harness, how do you expand your intelligence? We put out a book on that. How to expand your intelligence. The Mukasu taught for years. You increase your intelligence by, or excuse me, he doesn't even say that. He says your intelligence is relative to the size of your brain. That is not actual facts. That is false. That your intelligence is not the size of your brain. We talked about this the other week. Your intelligence is relative to how much ether energy you allow to flow into the mind. They call that brain synapses. That's what scientists call it, brain synapses, which is really ether energy. Or they'll just say electrical impulses in the mind, which is what we call thought. Thought is electrical impulses, brain synapses. That's ether moving through the mind, moving through the brain, excuse me. And the more you're able to harness this ether energy into the brain, you increase your awareness, your intelligence. That's done through the meditation practices. Let me see if I can find this actual facts or Master Secrets number 22. And I'll try to bring it up so you guys can see, and so that you're familiar with the particular book that we explain. Actually, we explain it in two books. Okay. The master teacher goes into this concept. There's 2 books that we put out on this. So this is the Master Secrets, the designer genes. We say Pa Rasem or Yachasat. Pa Rasem or Yachasat. That means designer genes. Okay. And so now we go right here, paragraph 22. There is a misconception that the larger the brain, the higher the intelligence, which is actually incorrect. Paragraph 13, the higher intelligence is dependent upon the increased number of neurons in the brain, in the damag, we say the brain, the neurons, neurotransmitters. Research that, guys. As you increase neurotransmitters through the brain, this is how you increase your awareness. As someone who's highly spiritual and they're doing a lot of meditative work, they will have those experiences where information actually will begin to download into your mind. You become more aware, more conscious of things. We put out another book. Let's see if I have it here. This is what? Page 2. No, this is not it. That's not it. Not it. Let's see. We put out another actual fact. It's called I talked about it last week, which is natural ether energy. Natural ether energy for al Achak Nishat. That's the correct pronunciation of it. For al Achak Nishat. Natural ether energy. And in that particular book, what's this, page 7? This is it right here. Actual facts, number 25, natural ether energy for al Achak Nishat. In this particular book, in this scroll, we explain that by harnessing ether into the brain, harnessing ether into the brain, that's how you increase your intelligence level. You increase your awareness, guys. Let's see where we at here. If I can get into some of this. So we talk about Frater al Achak Nashat, natural ether energy, right? So I'm saying harnessing ether into the mind. Ether, because ether is what grows all things in existence, is made up of ether. That's important to understand, right? So we're at let's see. Paragraph 49, Nashat, which is energy, nor matter can be destroyed, only a change in their appearances. So, for Ter'a Achak Nashat, natural ether energy is neither macroscopic nor microscopic. Kasud, meaning they can neither be seen, semi-seen with the naked ayan at eyes, nor with a microscope. However, you can taste them, shamu, hear them, smell them, sha'or, feel them, and rawi, see them in a halam, a dream state or vision state or trance induced by chanting or drugs. So guys, when you're dreaming, you're seeing things in the mind, that's ether, natural ether at work in the mind. You're seeing these images in the mind. That's why we have dreams and you think you can't tell the difference whether the dream is real or not. That's ether projections in the mind. Says, but must be haduya, guided by a nabab master, as a one can lose control of the akal, the mind, and or khatat, the body. This is why I said you need a spiritual master. If you're dealing with spirituality, you need a spiritual master for guidance. We're the ones that have the master teacher among us who has been guiding us by way of the actual facts, the master's secrets, the patarat, teaching us step by step. What are the things we're supposed to be doing for our spiritual development, so that we can become conscious and aware of the other levels of existence that we've been cut off from for far too long, right? That's why master teacher exists. And I say that because I hear different people out there who are talking about spiritual development, but they're not masters. Or I heard other people, who are spiritually inclined, but they're studying under Hindu masters or Asian masters. Guys, looking, let me see, where is this at? Let me find this real quick. This is page 2, this book right here. This is Master Secrets number 4. Why no help from above, right? Why no help from above? Okay. Meaning it's about why we're not getting help from our spiritual ancestors. Why are we not getting help from our spiritual ancestors? I've read this once before. It says, paragraph 14. So each race vibrates on their own frequency, and by their inner energies get them outer skin, lawan, color, and or hue, depending on the strength of their ancestors' DNA, their chromosomes. So the reason why we look different on the outside is because of the vibration, the frequency, the genetics, the energies that our bodies are vibrating on. Okay, each race vibrates on their own frequency. So the Caucasian race is vibrating at a certain resonant frequency. The Asians, the East Indians are. You have the Chinese are. The differences. That's why people look different. They're vibrating at a different frequency. And all of existence is about vibration, guys. It's about frequency. That's what matters. Is your vibration. Don't let anyone tell you different. The fastest or strongest is the pure Hamet Salal, the black race. The slowest or weakest is the unpure Laben Salal, the white race. And to each their own in between. It is all communicated to you by your Salafu ancestors, the living spirits of your own who vibrate as you from the spiritual abode. Your own Yasar, family, spirits back to Panatharu. Your ancestors lead you to the Panatharu, the masters who are on a much higher vibration. They're on a non-ether realm. We're connected to them by way of our blood, by way of our DNA. Again, I keep saying, I'm always talking about, that's why we don't mix in our bloodline. That's why the Mukasu promotes miscegenation, mixing your bloodline. All these black-white couples you see on TV, right? They purposely push that. They push that. Kamala Harris, mixed bloodline. Kamala Harris, the vice president, mixed bloodline. Barack Obama, president, mixed bloodline. The new judge they just nominated, Supreme Court Justice FEMA, right? Her husband is a Mukasu. She has her daughter is a mixed bloodline. They're purposely finding people like that. They're trying to dilute our blood. It makes them stronger, makes us weaker. It makes them stronger, makes us weaker. When you reduce your vibration, that's how you lose connection to nature. When you get off your natural frequency, that's what we're trying to explain. So paragraph 25 says each race we're talking about has to dial in on just the right and exact station or speed, vibration, frequency, or voice as your Yasar, your family, in the spirit world tapal, called family spirits or familiar spirits. In order for you to make contact with your ancestors who exist on a higher dimensions, you have to be vibrating on their same frequency. But again, the culture that we live it keeps us disconnected. I've talked about this many, many times. Right here. Their own frequency is only 440 hertz. This is the Mukasu. 440 hertz. While you are 528 hertz or more, depending on your Yakasat, depending on your genes, right? You can be vibrating at a high frequency. It's all about your DNA, the music of your body, as pitch is perceived roughly as the logarithm of frequency. This means that the perceived distance from every spot in a system. So you have C major, C flat, and C sharp, F major, F flat, F sharp. F is the frequency of the planet Earth, guys, right? That's the vibration of Earth. C is the vibration of the universe. And A is the vibration of your physical body. You have to learn to alter your genes at will and transform your inner and outer being. You must learn that the state you're in now, you're unworthy to live on the planet Morzak, Risk, with Pa Morzak the Riskians. We come from those realms. We come from the realm we come from the planet Risk, right? The 19th galaxy. We're now in the 18th galaxy, but we can't get back to there because we would not be able to survive vibrating at the rate we're vibrating at. This is what the journey within is all about. You must first elevate to a higher level, Tazu's vibration, to be able to move through different density levels. In that state, your molecules can be sped up and you can transform into a McBab, a craft, he says. Nawapians, I spoke of this many years ago, yet those around me at the time were blinded by religious beliefs as Nubian Islamic Hebrews and Saudi and not ready for this level of right knowledge. Density levels are the different dimensions that beings vibrate on. There are 9 different density levels altogether, right? You guys, I'm always showing you guys the SMAT circle where it shows you the different density levels. Okay. There are 9 different density levels. You have when you get down to 3, that goes into primordial chaos. That goes down to 1. I don't have the diagram for that, but there are 9. You see, this is 3 ether going all the way up to 9. Obviously, as we always talk about, we come from a 9 ether realm, but we're trapped down here in the 3 ether. You have to raise your vibration. This is what the journey within is all about. Learning to raise your vibration in order to develop yourself, to make contact. What else is there? If you're not doing that, what else is there? What's the point in being in Wu-Sabat? If you're not going to develop yourself spiritually, what's the point? Right? Might as well be in the club with everyone else. Like I said, you run the risk of reincarnating, doing it again. Each incarnation, you get a memory wipe. Each incarnation, you get a memory wipe. Every time you come down to this realm, you don't recall your memory. If you resurrect, you don't do that. Your memory gets restored. If you resurrect, that doesn't happen to you. Your memory gets restored, guys. That's the gift of resurrecting. We put the master teacher makes that clear. This book right here, the dimensional shift. This is the dimensional shift right here. This is Patarak, the dimensional shift. He makes it clear about the restoration of your memory. Let's start it here on the top. All of these wavelengths of different frequencies intermingle in the same space at the same time. He's talking about we're connected into different realms. They occupy the same space, even at the same time, guys. The reason why you're not aware of it, because they're vibrating on different density levels, right? They're all here. We're all in it, in the space. But because we're vibrating at such a low rate of a level, we can't perceive. Like, we should be able to perceive the plane of force. Everyone should be able to perceive the plane of force. We're all in it, but we can't because our vibrations, we're not in tune, because we're not doing the things that keep us in tune. So he goes on to say, now Nuwapians understand this, that this universe is composed of 8 harmonic tones or worlds, as in music scales, each note of an octave. Each harmonic world is composed of 8 harmonic dimensions. All of these dimensions exist in the same space and time as does light and sound. Yet they operate and appear separately because of the variant particle pulsation rate of the atoms and the cells. It has to do with tones or sounds as used in each word. As you sing, chant, pray, or speak, the use of grammatical pronunciation of your own language, using your own tongue, and giving voice box tones and numbers as in music, opens your imagination and access to the other dimensions of your etheric being. As you're raising your vibration, it opens you up to these other realms of your higher self, he's saying. Right? By your emotional being, your soul force is what allows you to make contact, guys, which activates your subconscious mind to remember when you were divine, now lost under Nawam, this spell of sleep. Your subconscious mind has access to your memory. Your subconscious mind has access to your genetic memory. Remember, we did that last week. We talked about the memories in your genes. The memories in your genes is encoding your genes. And remember, you're the genetics of your mother and father, who's the genetics of their mother and father, who's the genetics of their mother and father, so on and so forth. All the way back to the Natharu. Our genes go all the way back to the Natharu. You have access to that memory if you raise yourself up. This is what the master says, which activates your subconscious mind to remember when you were divine, now lost under the spell of sleep. You can remember those deeply buried powers of your divine mind from your zero time reference. These particle pulsation rates take place in the same space at the same time. yet they remain invisible or unheard. All like what happens in a room you're in with others, other names, races, and so on. When a planet evolves through dimensions, the rate of speed or particle pulsation progressively allowing that planet to evolve through the 8-dimensional scale. It is the same with the human body. So what he's saying, guys, is here. See the smack circle? We're in a 3 ether realm, moving into a 4 ether density level. It's going to take another 1,000 years for us to truly integrate with a 4 ether realm. We're moving into that, and any species living on a planet, they have to raise in vibration with that. Every child who's being born, they're born with the zero time reference of the new density rate. So with each progression of like say 100 years from now, the children who were born 100 years from now, they'll have that density rate. And then let's say 500 years from now, the children who were born then, they'll have that vibration rate. Okay. Now let's say us humans. We don't have the vibration rate of 1,000 years from today, but you can develop yourself where you could exist in a realm like that. If you want to continue to exist, that's what earning your crown of life is all about. When they talk about that in the Bible, in the book of Revelations, to earn your crown of life, eternal existence, but you have to be able to raise yourself up. You come from a non-ether density realm, so you actually can do it. You just forgot how to do it. And that's what the master teacher is trying to teach. How to do it. Or keep reincarnating. It's a shame, but that's what happens, But let's keep going. Question: how do you know that your spiritual practices are working? How do you know that your spiritual practices are working? The goal of spiritual rituals is to learn to become more aware of nature and your surroundings. Your hearing will improve. Your eyesight will improve. Your sense of smell will increase. Your sense of touch will improve. You will start to receive thoughts into your mind, giving you answers to questions you always wondered about, right? I talked about your level of awareness will increase as you're developing spiritually, and you will experience that. You'll know the difference. You'll feel a difference. You'll see the difference. Trust me, guys. Question: how does living the principles of Wu-Sabat help in your spiritual growth? You must comprehend the principles of Ma'at and the wisdom of the Hutri. I talk about this, all the time in the beginning. How does living the principles of Wu-Sabat help in your spiritual growth? You must comprehend the principles of Ma'at and the wisdom of the Hutri, right? Now, as you guys know, we did a discussion on that, okay? And let me see. We go here, if I can find it. Let's see. Now, this is the Master Secrets, number 18, part 2. Okay. Let me go back here. So this is the Master Secrets, Takwam an Shalil and Nunya, a nation of our own, right? That's what it translates. Takwam un Shalil and Nunya, a nation of our own. Okay, so this is series 18, part 2. Okay, and it goes into what we're going to talk about here. Oh, I keep doing this. I keep making this mistake. Hold on. So right here, and this is on page 3 of that Master's Secrets. It says, in accordance with the Dawar cycle and season as the natural rules of Fatar nature as Nagaru accepted, they weaken, both mentally and physically, losing their Sayim Sachem at divine powers, cutting off their 4 higher senses, rendering them mere human beings and no longer Fa'ek Mukwenu. This is how we lost our powers, he's talking about. And we became human beings from being supreme beings. We used to be supreme beings. Fa'ek Mukwenu, right? These accepted religions are no more than systems of the Kak, faith, Akkad, belief, worship of unknown spirits, Malahat, rituals to become possessed by spirit forces, familiar specter that influence the actions of peoples and things in a negative way, reacting on and from that negative blood, now in many of us by rape or acceptance, hypnotized by media, right? And so this is how we get possessed by spirit forces, through either mixing in, right, or taking on their culture, because we've been brainwashed through their media, okay? Now, the original Hazab culture of black people on Taha, Earth, better known as Wunawap, and the persons Munwapu, the Wapians, are sun culture, also called Pata'u, Pataites, and Mukbamu, Melanites, which is the very first and original culture within Kale Mukwam, the omniverse, to this Wahoo Mukwam universe of ours. The culture of Wunawap, of Nawapians, is based on the principles of what we call sound right reasoning, meaning it is the highest possible takra, decision-making skills utilized by any being in Pa'ut, existence, power of choice, of knowing or guessing, willpower as factologist, ontologist, removal of doubts by hakakat, facts. An individual who is intelligent enough to live by way of Wunawap is Nawap-U, Nawapian speaking Nawapui, Nawapic, and on any of our holy lands worldwide, Nawapia, or we say Sabbatia, realize that they must study, advocate, and live by the binding rules of Patarak, the way, following and adhering to the principles of Ma'at, which stands for righteousness, justice, balance, and order. And we talked about this last week. Okay? This is the key to spiritual development. Order, right? The whole goal of our culture and society is based on order, to live in order. But you can't have order, right, without balance. Everything has to be balanced. All of existence is based on balance. You can't have right without wrong. You can't have up without down. You can't have hot without cold. You can't have left without right. You can't have winter without summer. All of existence is based on balance. You can't have negative without positive. All of existence is based on balance. That's why when you study our ancestors, they talk about the Chamunu, or they say the Ogdogs, right? And they said Nun Tat, Wu Nun. Nun Tat was the female principle. Nun was the masculine principle. Then you have Ha Tat, Wu Ha, female male. Kok Tat, Wu Kok, female male. Amun Tat, Wu Amun, female male. We always had a counterbalance. And then it went to the Sedeptu. In the Sedeptu, you had Shu or Shawash and Tefnut or Tafafnatat, right? Male and female. Then you had Nut and you had Geb, female and male. Then you had Arashtat or Aset and Asar, female and male. And then you had Nababtat, Hatat, and Satach, female and male. Balanced principles. That's how you have. That's why the Mukasu system is so full of unbalance and injustice, because of their racism. They give white people everything, give black people nothing, which means it creates an imbalancement. And that's why you have us constantly complaining about their unjust system, because they create an imbalance. And when you, in order to have balance, you have to have justice. Justice is being able to make fear be fear in your decision making. Their justice system is not fair in their decision making. In order to be fair, you have to be righteous. What is righteous? Being able to make the right decisions, right? How do you know to make the right decisions? Well, you have to have the wisdom of the Hutri. It's the only way you're going to know, by having the wisdom of the Hutri. This is what the Hutri represented, our divine mind, who overstood the principles of nature itself. They say the laws of nature, and we say the rules of nature. By way of the wisdom of the Hutri, we knew the rules, that how we supposed to govern ourselves. And that's how we was able to maintain Ma'at, because we overstood the rules of existence. The Mukasu has no clue. That's why he keeps destroying the planet with all this toxic waste and all these wars they keep having. And everything they want to do is artificial this, artificial that. They're messing with the ecology of nature, and they're disrupting and destroying the planet because they're untuned and unconnected to natural nature. I hope we understand this. I hope you guys will dedicate yourselves to spreading this right knowledge. Let the people know. Get people to watch these lectures. Get people to watch these discussions. Read the books. Read. That's one thing I give the Muslims. Iqra Muhammad. They told Muhammad to read. That's what the Quran means. The reading. To read. That's how you expand your intellect, your intelligence. But read the right knowledge, right? Read the right knowledge. This is what the master teacher has dedicated himself to exposing all these facts about who and what we are by natural nature. Okay. Question. What does age have? Does age have anything to do with spiritual growth? Question. Does age have anything to do with spiritual growth? Answer. Yes. The older someone is, the harder it can be for spiritual growth. Older people seem to be set in their ways and are resistant to change. I'm talking about once you hit from 25 and up. The older you are, the smarter your questions may be in your spiritual journey. But sometimes you can ask too many questions that can confuse or mislead yourself into thinking you understand the answer based on your life experiences, but you may be misinterpreting your answers. Older people develop bad habits or addictions that may be very difficult for them to overcome without them asking for help. But most don't ask or tell people. This is why when the master teacher started, he focused on the children. He focused on the children because children don't have all those habits we develop as we're growing, especially in this culture. We can't live without a cell phone now. We can't live without these Instagram and chat things and the social media now. We become so addicted. We need to have pretty cars and pretty houses. We got to furnish a house with stuff. The older you get, the more you get caught up into that system because you're making money, right? The older you get, you're making money. Children aren't making money like the adults, so they don't have to buy all that stuff because they don't have the money to do it, which means they don't have the same attachments. But we're making all this money means you're going to be buying stuff. What's that comedian, George Carlin? If anyone's seen it, he talked about that. It's a funny guy. Talks about you buy a house to put stuff in it. And then you put so much stuff in it that you overwhelm your house with stuff. So you wind up saying, I got too much stuff or my house is not big enough for my stuff. So you decide, I'm going to buy a bigger house so I can put my stuff in it. But what happened is when you buy a bigger house and put stuff in it, you start putting more stuff in the bigger house until that house becomes overwhelmed with stuff. See, that's how they get you. That's how this system gets you. That's why you go to some people's homes. The women have like what 200-300 shoes in a closet. The men have like 15 pairs of sneakers nowadays. All this unnecessary stuff. And with each thing you get is more attachment. It binds you to this realm, and it makes it very difficult for spiritual growth. Because you're trying to go into a higher realm. How could you really do it? And you keep binding yourself with with material stuff that bound you to this realm, the desires. It traps you. So yeah, it becomes very challenging for older people. The older you get, they have the addictions, the drinking habits, the gambling habits, the smoking habits, the TV habits, and the list goes on. The eating habits. It's difficult. We have to take this in consideration. Our people really need rehabilitation centers to wean us off of this system. It's no joke. It's no joke, But that's our journey. That's our journey. That's the price of resurrection. That's the price of the crown of life. They talk about you're going to earn it. For those who choose to earn it, you're going to earn it. If you can overcome all of these things I'm talking about, you will earn it. You will getting off this dimension is no joke. Why do you think they give us 24,000 chances? That lets you know that being on this realm is no joke. Now we have an advantage, guys, because we happen to be born at the time that there was a master teacher incarnated. Think about, imagine your grandparents and your great-grandparents' times. There was no spiritual master there. I mean, they had Marcus Garvey and Noble Drew Ali and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but they weren't spiritual masters. Or your Frederick Douglass or your Booker T. Washingtons or your Sojourner Truths and your Harriet Tubmans, but they weren't spiritual masters. We're fortunate to be born at the time cycle where there is a spiritual master on the planet who can explain these other realms and how to get to them and how to make contact with the higher realms. Our people just had religious belief systems back in the day. They didn't have right knowledge. I mean, unless you was fortunate enough to be born in the Sudan in the mid 1800s, 1860s, 1850s, then yeah, you probably could have been a student of Muhammad Ahmed, who was a spiritual master living in the Sudan at the time, if you was fortunate enough. But there was no internet back then. There was no cell phones back then. The level of communication wasn't the same. So the only people who knew about those guys are the people who were from that area. Question. Do we need to wait for Dr. York to physically be with us to achieve our spiritual goals? Question. Do we need to wait for Dr. York to physically be with us to achieve our spiritual goals? Answer. Some students may believe that Dr. York has more things to teach us to achieve our spiritual goals, but I don't agree with this line of thinking. I argue that we have been given everything we need to achieve all our spiritual goals if we dedicate ourselves to our spiritual practices each and every day. If you look at spiritual practice the way a professional athlete looks at their job, then achieving our goals would be much simpler, but sadly, a lot of people lack the willpower to perform at these levels, which is why professional athletes are rare, or people like them are rare. So the question, I believe, is not about Dr. York, but ourselves. Is he the master teacher? He is the master teacher. We are the students. We have been given our homework, but we have not completed our homework thinking we need more lessons when I argue that we have been given all we need. Now, don't get me wrong, the master teacher has a ton of things he has not taught us yet. But what I'm talking about is the ability to open your third eye, the ability to make contact with your oversoul, the ability to make contact with your ancestors. We do have that information, is what I'm saying. Now, when it comes to trying to turn yourself into a craft, a ship, that's a whole nother level that I can't speak on. But what I can speak on is what the master teacher did give us. So, for instance, if we go to, I'm always bringing up this particular scroll, which I think is extremely important, which is this is the Science of Healing book, right? Page 79. For those who don't know, the Science of Healing book, right? Science of Healing book. Let's go to page 79. And I've went over this page before a couple of times before. It's very profound doctrine, and he talks about, this book is explaining how to open one's third eye. It says the functions of the third eye. Okay. It says, 1, all messages received by the physical senses, 7 of them, must be sent to the oversoul, which is your etheric body. This is done through the third eye. So your physical senses, as you're perceiving things, guys, it goes into your this is why we record things in our DNA, because we're recording everything that we experience. Every level of experience, we're recording these things. And that's kind of confirmed if anyone who studies the research, the near-death experience, the people who claim to have near-death experience, they all talk about when they're in the other realm, the spiritual realms, their whole life flash in front of them. They see their life as like in a movie screen from the time they were born to the present time. Look into it, guys. So that's some evidence that you record, everything is recorded about yourself, right? Then it goes on to say, number 2, all messages received by the spiritual senses can only be sent to the physical consciousness by way of the third eye. So your spirit, this is the affirmation. That's how the master teacher gets the affirmation, because information is coming from the spiritual realms and it comes into the physical body. But the only way you can perceive it is if your third eye is active. Then you can download the affirmation. That's how it works, right? I repeat, all messages received by the spiritual senses can only be sent to the physical consciousness by the third eye. Number 3, the third eye sends messages of knowledge from one level of the mind to another. The 3 levels are what? You have your normal consciousness, that's A. You have your subconsciousness level, which is B. And you have your superconscious level, which is C. Your superconscious is your oversoul. That's what we're all trying to connect with. Your mind has numerous amount of memory vaults used for storage of the many experiences you have encountered. Although your normal level of consciousness, here's the key, although your normal level of consciousness does not possess access to this knowledge at various times, it receives intuition or instinct from the oversoul or etheric body, which does have access to this knowledge. That's your key. Your oversoul has access to these higher levels of knowledge, and through your spiritual development, through the journey within, this is how you increase your awareness. This is what I was saying. But when I was saying before, intellect is through you increase your intelligence through harnessing the ether energy into the mind, and it gives you access. Your superconscious is always sending in, data into you. The problem is, because we don't do the necessary spiritual things, we block all of that information. But we have the ability to do it. It says right here, the mind levels interlock with each other. One form of message sending is intuition. if the third eye is not sufficiently opened, or it is disturbed by emotional stress, that negative mind, if it's disturbed by emotional stress, messages between mind levels may be hindered, delayed, or sometimes completely interrupted. And so the goal is to link all levels of your mind, from the normal to the subconscious to the superconscious. This is what the journey within is all about. This is what spiritual development is all about. And then we will be able to outthink the Mukasu, because obviously we haven't been able to outthink the Caucasian, and we're stuck in his system of racism, white supremacy. This is how you do it. This is the importance of this subject matter. This is the crucialness of the subject. Guys, do you understand? If our people really understood what I'm trying to say here, you understand the power we would have as a people, what we can develop, what we can really do. How you think we was able to build those pyramids? Because we was on a totally different level of consciousness back then that we're not on now. We've been reduced. And God, you can clearly see it. If you look at our people, let's say from us in the 1910s, right? And I talked about this before. Each decade, each generation got worse and worse and worse until the generations we have today. Our people, our children are being totally misled. They're being born into a culture where it's confusing gender. They don't know what gender is now. So we're born into a society of chaos. That's right, Allison. We would be unstoppable. We have this power within, guys. We have this power within. It's just a matter of us accessing it, taking advantage of this right knowledge, putting this stuff to the test. Remember, I said, I'll keep saying. So I read it every week. This doctrine is based on self-authentication. How would you know if you don't put it into test? I hope you know Sabians are scientists. You're supposed to put these things to the test. We should be doing this as groups. We're being more effective that was the purpose of the communities. Trying to do this as a group. The problem is we didn't have this level of consciousness at the time when the master teacher had these communities. I know I didn't have this level of consciousness back then. I didn't come into this level of awareness. It started in 2007 for me, and it really began to increase by 2016, honestly. That long. And you talk about somebody who started learning in 1989. You can take me from 1989 all the way to 2007. That's actually when I became aware of my spiritual energies and senses of the body in 2007. But that's from 1989 to 2000. That's 18 years removed. 18 years to become aware of that for me. And I've been in a work in progress ever since, developing this, trying to harness it, but dealing with what? The negative freaking habits that I'm telling you. I'm talking about it because I'm a freaking experience of the same thing. Bad habits, trying to overcome. And then you have to realize, well, why do you have bad habits? Then you have to realize the master teacher explained, well, it's because you have negative spirit forces that plague your mind. Now you got to comprehend the different spirit forces, the thoughts that come through your mind, and how to overcome disagreeable thoughts that plagues our minds. And the things that may trigger these things. TV triggers it. Environment trigger it. Food may trigger it. Smell and certain colors may trigger it. So you have to become aware of yourself on all levels. You don't realize how many things our people have all kinds of triggers. Somebody, run in front of you in the red light, you're in the car, and some of our people go off. But this is the journey. This is the spiritual journey that we all supposed to be on. It's no joke. It's very real. And we have to spread this knowledge because our people do not know. They really have no clue what they're capable of doing, who they really are. They just don't know. So I'm saying with this question, yes, I believe the master teacher gave us all we need, especially from my own personal experience and things I've been able to do. My personal experiences I've seen, and looking at, students over the years, you're talking about 3 decades. Most of the students that I've come across are materialists. They're terrestrial. They're not celestial in nature. They're too preoccupied with their lives here, and so they don't make the time. And guys, we remember ma'at, balance. I'm not telling you to be no guru, live in no cave. That's not what we're saying here. We're saying you balance. You have to embrace the physical part of your existence equally with the spiritual part of your existence. You create a balance, not an imbalance. We're all physical and nothing spiritual, and you create an imbalancement, and this is why we're suffering. This is why we're sick, because we don't know how to develop ourselves spiritually. And so we are born, and think about it, generation after generation. Each generation is materialist, and your genes, each generation got bad genes we kept inheriting. That's why we're dealing with all these freaking sicknesses of our people. The disease of us got so bad because we've been inheriting bad genes, because none of the prior generations were doing anything spiritual. And now with the Mukasu convincing us to mix in with them, we're making our genes even worse. That's why I talk about miscegenation. They're making your genetics even weaker. Question: what is the end result of someone reaching the spiritual goals that Wu-Sabat teaches us? Right? Question: what is the end result of someone reaching the spiritual goals that Wu-Sabat teaches us? Answer: the ultimate goal of all students of Wu-Sabat is to open your third eye so that you can make contact with your interdimensional spiritual family. At this point, you will become one with your oversoul, who will become your personal spiritual guide. You will have know-how. You will have knowledge how did I do that? You will have the knowledge of how to effectively deal with Leviathan more efficiently. That's what I'm trying to say. You will have the knowledge to how to deal with Leviathan more efficiently. This is why we as a people can't conquer the Mukasu and their culture, because of our spiritual weakness. This is how we get back to rulership. This is how we get back to restoring ourselves as a great people. We are a great people. We come from a great bloodline. This is what we are. But we can't experience it, live it, until we fix ourselves. We are broken people. We're hurt people, and we can't fix it until we fix ourselves. So the journey's within, not without. The journey's within, not without. Our people focus more on their physical endeavors, trying to do physical things, fighting the white man physically, trying to fight racism physically, and I'm not saying not to do that. What I am saying is we created imbalancement. Remember Ma'at, balance, balance, balance. We do nothing for our mental and spiritual development. We're spending all our time on our physical attributes and no time on our mental, spiritual attributes. You can't do one without the other and think you're going to be successful. It's not going to work. That's why we're not accomplishing anything. It's as simple as that. The master spent 60 years trying to explain this to us. You have to increase your spiritual knowledge, which will increase your intelligence level, which will then show up in your decision-making abilities. You'll see us stop making irrational decisions. That's the gifts of our spiritual, development. We'll stop making irrational decisions, guys. And then we'll become what you see in those statues in ancient Kemet in Egypt, those magnificent monuments that our ancestors built. They're bigger than life, huge, huge. We will become those giants again. We will become those God people on earth, human gods, God, human, God, man. What's that movie 300? The God man, the God Xerxes, right? The God man. That's an interesting movie. Yeah, we'll become human gods again. That's in our destiny. That's in our potential to be. That is what it means to reach our goals. Then we can bring the planet back to justice, back to Ma'at. With all that being said, we're at that time. It's 9 a.m. I hope this discussion was fruitful and help. I'm always saying, watch our discussions more than once, at least 3 times. I think it'd be, beneficial for your own edification. Spread the word. Let others know about what we're teaching, the power of this doctrine. People do not know the power of what we're teaching, how powerful this doctrine is. Let it be known, guys. Let it be known. If you have any questions before I'll do our 9 o'clock prayers, you can ask right now. If not, you always can put a question in the comments. Guys, put questions in the comments. And let me say that also. Everybody should put like one question in the comments, because one, that actually helps us, with getting the whole internet algorithm of YouTube. It helps, with getting more notoriety on these, on this YouTube channel, right? It stimulates thoughts, and so I think questions, they're healthy. Ask questions because it stimulates thoughts. It'll help people who are new to this, and help others, even us who are not new. Ask one question. I challenge you, everyone who's listening to this. You got what, 200 people that may listen to this? Ask one question. One question. Simulate thoughts. Make a statement. Make a comment. It'll help us. I hope everyone wants liberation. That's what we're all fighting for. I hope we all want liberation. Also, with that being said, tomorrow we have our next On Common Ground interview. So we're going to be here tomorrow from 7 to 9 again. We're going to be interviewing another one of our good brothers, a Sabian, who's been in this information as long as me. And he's coming on to give his perspective. It's anyone who has something to say, who wants to come on and interview. We do our interviews every Wednesday from 7 to 9 p.m. We call it On Common Ground because we're trying to find a common ground among our brothers and sisters to solve these problems that we're dealing with, right? And so we're bringing on different brothers and sisters who can talk about their perspectives of how they see things. So it's not going to be about me. It's going to be about others, because you guys hear me every Tuesday. So we're bringing on different personalities to talk about, how they see things and see if we can find a common ground to come up with some solutions to what we're dealing with, guys. So be on the lookout for that tomorrow from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. On Common Ground is going to be our discussion. With that being said, we will do our chant and our prayer system, right? For those who are not familiar, we do our prayer system 9 a.m., 3 p.m., and 9 p.m., right? We do prayers into a chant system. And really, after the chant, you're supposed to go into a meditated state. And let me know, I've been meaning to show you guys this for those who watch me from week to week when I do these chants. Because at the end of the chant, because you guys may not notice, this right here is a book the master teacher put out. This is page 51. This is called This particular scroll is called the 9 Principles of the Human Being. The 9 Principles of the Human Being. The master teacher put this out back in maybe 2000 or something like that. The 9 Principles of the Human Being. And so when you go here, at the end of the prayers, right? Y'all see me do this. Y'all see me do this. I do this, right? This is the diagram. This is where I got this from. What you're doing, and then at the end, you'll see me do this whole thing. It represents the symbol of the Ankh, or we say the Ankh Tui, the symbol of life. When you transition from this realm and you move into the higher abodes, this is the symbol that represents that, because the Christians do the symbol of death. That's the cross. The cross is the symbol of death. The Ankh is the symbol of life. So at the graveyard, you see all these crosses. Excuse me, not this symbol. This is the cross. At the graveyard, you see all these symbols. And then our people wear this symbol. You know, they always doing this, blah, blah, blah. And that's the symbol of death. We don't do that. This is the symbol of life. We do the symbol of life, right? And so at our burial places, you see the Ankh. Our ancestors were buried with the Ankh. That's why you see us, because that was a question that Sarnetta, if anyone talks to Sarnetta, explain to him why we do that, because he was upset. Why you get us on the Ankh? The Ankh was a symbol of transitioning from this realm to the higher abode. That's why our ancestors were buried with Ankhs. Question from Gawada 9. Question. If ETs are highly spiritual, why do they want to trap us under religion? Excellent question. These ETs that we're dealing with, they're coming from a 3 ether realm. Excuse me. They're coming from a 4 ether density realm, a 5 ether density realm, and a 6 ether density realm. So they're on the 6 ether, 5 ether, or 4 ether realm, right? Now, these ETs is just like what you see in the movies. The only difference in the movies, they don't show you. Think of it like the Thor. That's probably the best, level to see it as. They're humanoids. They're humanoid, but they're different. They're more like Loki. They're different. They're more advanced. They have more abilities, but they're humanoid, right? And so they utilize weaker planets to do things. They come to planets for resources. They come to planets for to hunt. They come to the planets for different reasons. And so when they take over a planet, they need workers. And that's what that's how they see humans. They see humans as 2 things. They see humans as food, and they see humans as workers, as the master teacher is explained. All these abductions, people are being transported to other planets as slave labor, and people are being transported to be on someone's menu. They see us no different than humans see a cow, no different than humans see chicken. That's how some of these ETs see humans. And so they need to keep their food docile, because humans have a level of intelligence. And so religion makes the humans docile. It teaches you about spirituality without teaching you anything about spirituality. It's a trick. It's a nice trick, because people think when they're religious, they're spiritual, and they have no clue about spirituality. So it's a nice trick of telling somebody about spirituality, about what Jesus did spiritually, and how he walked on water, and he healed the blind, and rose the dead, and did all these spiritual things, but they don't tell you how to do it. They just tell you to worship a guy who does it. It's a nice trick, man. It's a nice trick. So it's a way to keep the human population docile. That's what religion does. And then religion teaches you that your religion is the solution. Everyone else is not the solution. And that's what causes the wars, because you feel you have the truth. And if everybody is living your religion, then it's going to bring peace on earth. And that's why the Muslims were trying to conquer everyone. That's why the Christians were trying to conquer everyone, because they're like, this, you live our way, this is how we're going to have, a good life on earth. That's what religion brainwashes people to think, that their way is the only way. And so it in essence, religion dumbs the population down. It dumbs down the planet. So I hope that helps, I hope that helps, the answer. So, with that being said, let's get to our what we call namaz prayers, right? Let's get to our namaz. We do it in our lahaj, our language, Sabaic. We have the English below it, so you guys can follow in the English. You do it in the English until you learn to do it in our lahaj, in Sabaic, guys. It's for your own spiritual development. Never forget that. Bade kalal namasat wufad called Amad Kasamun Shalal Pu'ut. Pa Takyud. Anuki Jawab Pa Ashuk Mpa Pu'ut. Wu Kale Ashuk Kawun Jawaf Nia. Anuki Kasamun Mpa Pu'ut. Wu Pa Pu'ut Kawun Kasamun M Nia. Anuki Wahu Ama Pa Pu'ut. Wu Pa Pu'ut Kawun Wahu Ama Nia. Naku Kador Naju Amad Kasamun Mpa Pu'ut. Wu Khabu Amad Muskasun. Naku Kador Kawan Kale Pafaf Naku Daya Jawab Pa Pu'ut. Amad Wase Amad Dayani Kawun Lake Bakui Jawab Pa Pu'ut. Anuki Yabad B Nafasni. Pa Pu'ut Kawun. Anuki Pa Pu'ut Kador. Naku Kador. Pa Pu'ut Amu. Naku Amu. Lahahum Manahnun. Lahahum Manahnun. Ahumata Karahum. Ahumata Karakum. Ahumata Karanun. Ahumata Jawafnia. Ahumata Niyawu Anukihum. Yaye Ashuk Re'e. Asmua Jayenun. Yaye Nataru Afuknun. Anunata Mukra Ukum. Yaye Nataru Afuknun. Afuknun Afuknun. Yaye Nataru Nun. Anun. Atun. Atun. Amun. Namazo Wahu. Yaye Mufaku. Yayehu. Yayehu. Yaye Nataru. Yaye Soye. Yaye Soye. Yaye Nataru. Yaye Hika. Yaye Hika. Yaye Nataru. Ankum at the pa mufaku. Yayehu. Yayehu. Yaye Nataru. Ankum at the pa mufaku. Wu anun at the mukra ukum. Wu ankum at the musanun. Yayehu. Yayehu. Yaye Nataru. Aro muklasnum atum reye. Yayehu. Yayehu. Yaye Nataru. Namazo atu aronhu. Yaye mukdamu afutnun. Ankum mane yakela duda muslafunun. Wu musaunun. Mane yake sawura paba. Mane yake kawuna ka'u. Mane yake ata akhakh. Mane yake kawuna basha wu damam. Yaye nataru mukdamunun. Aro muftanun. Anhu kawun manza mane pa nataru. Aro enhu. Anhu kawun baba yananan. Aro enhu. Anhu kawun atum re'e. Aro enhu. Anhu kawun haro. Namazo talu. Yaye nataru muslafunun. Afutnu mane pa mujwa'u. Afutnu mane gaha'an. Yaye nataru afutnun. Mane saya khayara. Afutnun afutniya. Afutnun afutniya. Yaye nataru nun. Namazo rabu pa takmui. Nakuk talub takmui bi pa nataru. Mane pa la'en lawi tananu. Kaleh ranam atni at the lahe pa nataru. Wu kaleh namazo atni at the lahe kayat iyatun laye pa nataru. Pa sawa wu pa turu. Panem esfa kawun. Pa sawa wu pa turu. Z kawuna nazula laha ankum. Mane masbad wu masad. Ame hadayan un. Wu damal un. Mane muslafukum. Wu nataru. Aju laya nafasukum. Afuk shane kawunkum. Pa sawab wu pa turuk. Pa hadayan wu pa damal. Anun tawo ankum. Lahe panen damal wu shafe. Anun tawo ankum lahetem nasuinun. Anun tawo ankum lahe ashukuma. Ankum ata muslafunun. Anun ata mukrad ukum. Anum talub nasakuma. Anum talub nasakuma. And so nun kahen nataru. And so nun muslafunun. Anun ata muspatu. Anun. Atun. Atun. Amun. Yaye nataru nun. Yaye muftawu. Yaye nataru. Yaye atum re. Yaye natar. Yaye nun. Yaye natar. Yaye nun tat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye ha. Yaye natar. Yaye hatat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye kak. Yaye natar. Yaye katat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye amun. Yaye natar. Yaye amun tat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye atun. Yaye natar. Yaye shishash. Yaye natar. Yaye tafaf natat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye sabab. Yaye natar. Yaye natat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye arastat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye asar. Yaye natar. Yaye nababtat hatat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye satach. Yaye natar. Yaye hara. Yaye natar. Yaye hatwi. Yaye natar. Yaye anaktat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye ahaharatwi. Yaye natar. Yaye nafartun. Yaye natar. Yaye mantu. Yaye natar. Yaye bapti. Yaye natar. Yaye sachamtat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye hata haratat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye baibis. Yaye natar. Yaye patata. Yaye natar. Yaye basastat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye imhatap. Yaye natar. Yaye hu. Yaye natar. Yaye matat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye mahat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye chafaf re'e. Yaye natar. Yaye mishkinat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye rede tat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye chentimen to you. Yaye natar. Yaye hika. Yaye natar tat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye ma'at. Yaye natar tat. Yaye renen tat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye she. Yaye natar tat. Yaye sashat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye mafdat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye sabak. Yaye natar. Yaye anak. Yaye natar. Yaye chanun. Yaye natar. Yaye chanas. Yaye natar. Yaye patatanun. Yaye natar. Yaye soye. Yaye natar. Yaye haktat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye amas. Yaye natar. Yaye saratwi. Yaye natar. Yaye atum re'e. Yaye natar tat. Yaye dahutwi. Yaye natar. Yaye patata warat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye sakar tat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye ha. Yaye natar. Yaye naheb ka. Yaye natar. Yaye sakar. ya ye nathar, ya ye ba, ya ye nathar, ya ye akar, ya ye nathar, ya ye imharatat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye wapawatat, ya ye nathar, ya ye sakhat hatap tat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye meri tat sakar tat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye soye tat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye garatat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye asat inu, ya ye nathar, ya ye bahatat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye chanem tat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye manak tat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye chamem, ya ye chamem, ya ye nathar, ya ye mahatwi, ya ye nathar, ya ye kabesin and afaf, ya ye nathar, ya ye dalmata afaf, ya ye nathar, ya ye meritat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye nasat, ya ye nathar, ya ye imdadatat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye nachakbatat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye sakhatat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye anaktat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye dad, ya ye nathar, ya ye tun, ya ye nathar, ya ye wahu, ya ye nathar, ya ye yesas, ya ye nathar, ya ye anach, ya ye nathar, ya ye afnuit, ya ye nathar, ya ye satat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye sakhatwi, ya ye nathar, ya ye emat, ya ye nathar, ya ye nana, ya ye nathar, ya ye emnuit, ya ye nathar, ya ye emsatatwi, ya ye nathar, ya ye mukdaltat, ya ye nathar tat, ya ye rahashafaf, ya ye nathar, ya ye maratwi, ya ye nathar, ya ye amun hre, ya ye nathar, Yehu and Ather Kaleh Jawef Pa'ut Nun Re'e Tun Re'e Tun Re'e Hun Re'e Ye'un Amun 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 Amun. Chapter 4. Okay. All right. So again, we do the prayers, we do the chant. All of this is on your journey for spiritual development. That's in essence what this is all about. And again, after you finish that chanting Amun, really should do it 9 times. And then after that, relax and go into a meditative state. Just relax and go into a meditative state and take your mind into blackness. Take your mind into blackness. No thoughts. No thoughts. And practice that 3 times a day. Do this 3 times a day. And when you go into a meditative state, try to hold that for 9 minutes. And then increase it after a week to 19 minutes. Then wait 3 weeks to 4 weeks, and gradually increase it until you get to 30 minutes in that state, right? And then after maybe 2 months, get into an hour in that state. It may take you 2-3 months where now you're doing it an hour in that state 3 times a day. Now I know it may not be convenient time wise for a lot of us because of our schedules and jobs, and it's sad, but hopefully you can get up early enough to do it. You know, if you can't do it at 9 because you're working, get up early, get up 5 a.m. or something, 6 a.m. And of course, before you go to bed, do it in the evenings. You know, but get your spiritual practices in, get the rituals in. This is, your body will begin to respond to it. So with all that being said, I hope this was a help. I do my best because it's only the best I can do. And until then, like I said, we'll be back tomorrow for our discussion on common ground, and we'll be doing our interview, and we'll see how that goes. Until then, Muisar, I bless you. I bless you. Bless you all. Wadu. Gimul, I see your question. That the books are on Scribes. Probably what's happening is you're not inputting the right search process. So I'll try to send you a link to it. Or if you email me, look at my email in my description and email me, and then I can email you a link there. Okay? Bye.